We do it right here on the CatchMark Sports Podcast, Fred.
Wow, I started dancing right away. Wow.
We'll have a formal introduction for you in just a moment,
All right.
but hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Scott DeCamp with CatchMark SportsNet. This is Season 4, Episode 5 of the Van Dyke Mortgage CatchMark Sports Podcast, brought to you by Durgan Insurance Group. Trying to get this frog out of my throat. We're live here in the CatchMark podcast room in our Whitehall office. I'm joined by two of the other three co-hosts in the spring rotation. I have Cody Cater. Thanks for coming in, Cody.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, and then Tate Stine is back.
Nice to see you.
Yep, after a little week off. Not really off, but from the podcast.
Yeah.
Ken Byard, he's the other guy. He's the other kind of spoke in the wheel. He arrived home late last night, allegedly, from yet another vacation.
Oh,
Man, that guy retires from the public school education system, and all he does is go to tropical places now.
Life's not
What a
bad.
life.
Life's not bad.
What a life. Anyway, I hope you're listening and watching, Ken.
Yeah.
And I hope you come back on the podcast again because I hope I'm not making you too mad. So, but things are going well for you guys? I mean,
Yeah.
you had a busy weekend, looks like.
Busy weekend, yeah. We went up to north of Hamlin Lake there, and in the middle of nowhere, and brought our rising seniors and brought our, I guess, the rest of our coaching staff, and we were able to kind of do a leadership retreat. So it was a lot of fun getting all those guys out in that area, but, a little bonfire therapy, and able to bring the group together. And I think the biggest piece or the biggest takeaway, from it is just, you lose sight of how important, getting together, out of those normal routines and how much we can really learn from one another. So, I mean, it was a lot of fun. Meraki was there as well, and Dan did a tremendous job. So it was a lot of fun for us. It was busy. I took a little nap, my first nap, I think, of 2023. I took a little nap yesterday when we got back, but it was very rewarding.
I know you guys are well aware, but Cody's the head football coach at Reese Puffer, and, doing a lot of those team building culture type things that are so important to building a program. So I think you were busy too, Tate, weren't you coaching some basketball?
Yeah. I was up in Mount Pleasant, my first ever coaching gig. I'm coaching for Hardwood Evolutions Midwest. Shout out Bud Giddings. It's the 16U team. Got a lot of West Michigan Conference guys there. Started out 0-3, so a tough little start, but hopefully we can bounce back because we're going back to Ann Arbor this weekend.
All coaching.
It probably was.
What's the age group again?
It's a sophomore, 16U.
Oh, man, so I guess that kind of rules me out from coming off the bench like we discussed.
I don't know. We could use your gritty play style, Scott.
You haven't seen me play, so I don't know if gritty's the right word for that. So, but
I think you'd be a great bookkeeper.
yeah, probably. That's probably about my speed right now.
You got that look.
Yeah, you got that look about you.
Yeah. In other words, unathletic. So let's move on. Let's welcome our guest. It's Fred Inglis, currently golf coach at Shelby High School, but he's done a lot more than that in his storied career as a Emmy Award-winning sportscaster in California. Thanks for joining us, Fred. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. That takes me away from practice one day.
Yeah, so Connor Rath, who works with us here at CatchMark, he's your assistant coach, so he's running the show right now?
He's taking the helm. He's a good practice for him. We hope that he'll inherit this job program. We've got a couple of young people in there that I hope he's helping to groom along and to maybe influence and teach them a little bit about golf and all the great things that come with that. Golf is life.
Oh, yeah, so that's great. But we're going to dive into this in a second, but let's thank our sponsors first. Grieve Law, West Michigan Joint Divorce, Big Stone Therapies, Green Ridge Realty with Chris Dykman and Sarah Reel, North Grove Brewers, Foundation Systems of Michigan with John Botten, Coldwell Banker with Dave Dusenberry, Scheid Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, and then, of course, our title sponsors, Van Dyke Mortgage Lakeshore. You can find them at 460 West Western Avenue in Muskegon or call them at 231-332-6500. And then Durgan Insurance Group, they're at 1535 Fowler Road, I'll get this right one of these times, in Norton Shores. Call them at 231-744-9106. Hit those like and subscribe buttons on our CatchMark SportsNet YouTube channel. Our following, our subscribers are climbing up there now, and we appreciate it. So make sure you like and follow our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok. And then as a reminder, get in the comments section, which we've already got a few comments already, and you got somebody calling out Tate already on the comments section. Sean Hadke says he'll be home at May. Tate, you better be ready for some basketball runs.
I will be ready for that. Let me know, Sean.
And then Tim Miller also says hello. So we got a couple people here waiting. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Mr. Dusenberry show up as well, since he's a regular here as well. But so a little background, Fred. I mean, you graduated, I believe you said before the show, graduated 67 from Shelby?
That would 1967, by the way.
Not 18?
Thank you. Yeah, that was 55 years ago. We were just talking last summer. We had our 55th class reunion. It was a little scary, stark. There were so many old people there. I didn't know who they were, but apparently they were invited as well.
Isn't it funny how everyone else changes except for you?
Oh, I changed.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons I got out of the television business. I didn't want to be that old man on TV anymore. Hey, who is that guy? I can't understand the thing he's saying, but man, he looks terrible. I don't want that look. So no, I was one of them. I'm one of the old guys.
Yeah, so Mr. Dusenberry is here. He says he's here. He's I just took attendance, and he says he's present. So we got him too. But so just a little background on that with Shelby. What sports did you play growing up?
Well, I played the three. The three: football, basketball, and baseball. All 4 years, except basketball, only 2 years. Because I was no good. I was 110 pounds, and I was the smallest point guard around, and I didn't get much play action. So I went to work during that time. But yeah, hey, golf wasn't around. Golf just started when I was around. When I was in high school, they just opened up the Shelby Oceana Golf Club, and they were the first golf club from Montague's Old Channel all the way up to Ludington. So it was still an anomaly. It was still a new thing, a new sport, and I always thought it was just too old, too expensive, and didn't really even get close to it that much until I got into college and graduation.
How were you in baseball?
I was that tough guy. I was the guy who was the leadoff guy who would walk all the time and then get picked off or caught stealing.
Yeah, I was going to say, they knew the sign somehow.
Dude, I remember one time, this is the honest truth, we were chewing tobacco, and I swallowed some tobacco, and I got dizzy, and I hit this ball, and it was supposed to have been a home run. It was up in Hart, and it was supposed to have been a home run. I missed second base, went back to touch it, missed third base, stopped halfway. Thought, nah, he didn't see that. Went in a sliding. They tagged me out, and I got benched right there. But
okay, so it was in the park home run.
In the park home run.
Okay.
At Hart, it was.
Yeah, I was going to say you must have been. Yeah, you must have swallowed a lot of tobacco. Yeah.
Well,
was it the red man, like the leafy stuff?
Exactly, it was the red man. Exactly. Yeah. Well, I was somebody. That's how stupid I was.
Was that the stuff that they did on the Sandlot?
The Sandlot? I don't know. I don't remember.
When they were in the amusement park?
Yeah. It just looks like.
Oh, they had a big chunk.
Just a hard pull, and you have to pull from it. Just.
That's what they had in the movie The Sandlot.
Yeah, but we were out of our element. Put it that way.
On defense, what were you playing?
Second base.
Okay.
Yeah, I was fairly good. I played center field at first. And then second base, but defense wasn't my problem. It was basically hitting. I walked a lot. My whole job was, but the coach was said, take as many pitches as you can. We need to see what this guy's got.
Yeah.
So I was a sacrificial lamb there, but that was cool. No, I can't tell you how much you look back at those days and realize just the things you learn from high school sports that you don't even know it until you are able to reflect. The whole thing in football, just the grittiness and being able to withstand the contact. I was the first string defensive back, but I was second string on offense, so I would have to play on defense against the starting offense in practice. And we had this 245-pound guy, Brad Griffin, and I had to tackle him 10, 12 times every day. And I knew I had concussions every day, but I tackled him every day too, But I mean, it taught you who you were and taught you what you were able to do and withstand, and how much you were able to, how much you wanted. And those things applied to me in college, in my job in television, all of those things. It was setting up those kind of characteristics, values, that you could move on into your rest of your life. And it's cliche, but it's true. We had a golf tournament at Oceana Wednesday, torrential rainstorm. It was crazy. I should have canceled it, but I didn't. It kept going. And these guys, I realized these guys went through it, 18 holes of just cold, rainy circumstances and conditions. And yet they came out of it feeling pretty proud of themselves. We survived. We didn't play well, but we survived. We didn't give up. And that's something I know those guys are going to take. And I hope they use those at times when they start questioning, should I give up here? Should I give up there? Should I quit this job? Should I do this? Remember that you come out of it. You come out of it and you deserve that feeling that you get of accomplishment, even though maybe the score is not the same that you wanted, but it's accomplishing something.
I mean, those are maybe not the exact things, but some of the things I'm sure that you're kind of trying to get to, like trying to get the kids maybe more reflective and connecting on that other level, right?
Yeah, I think like right now we're trying to create a community of like concern, for one another, but just a connection. I think we're so disconnected as a community, in so many different ways throughout society. So it's just like we're trying to create an opportunity for our kids to understand community and how we can be prideful in ourselves by going through certain things. And I think that's the biggest piece, is that everyone deserves to feel prideful, but like we're losing that at youth, a sense of accomplishment by working through something and being persistent. And so it's just like, but once you get a kid to like understand that, or we gain that through our training, it is so rewarding to see them go through things. Just like we were talking, like it's difficult, or it's time consuming, but it's not X's and O's anymore. It's all about trying to create that community of just trying to understand one another and believe. And that, that blind trust, that's what we're talking a lot about right now. It's just so much society doesn't have that any longer, that they just trust the coach because he's the coach, so it's a lot of, it's incredibly rewarding though. So
now, Tate, you're just, sorry, Fred,
you just don't, you just don't learn from winning. You learn through adversity. You learn from losing. And, and I think as a coach, you want to reinforce those positives even in defeat. You want to, congratulate them through that adversity and just remind them that this is one more thing you can say you accomplished. You went through some trouble and you lived through it.
Yeah. No, that's what it's about. And Tate, I mean, you're just scratching the surface in coaching.
Yeah.
But, I mean, those are things I'm sure you'll be able to take with you too, when things from your playing days. And then just trying to relay it to the kids. And
I'm a big fan of, I don't know if you've heard of JJ Redick's new podcast that he does. I don't know if you have either, Cody, the old man of the jumper. And he's had a lot of great guests on. He talks about the importance of veteran leadership. And that just kind of goes in with what we're talking about right now, being able to reinstall those values and make sure that no one really loses sight of the common goal.
Yeah, oh, for sure. So what are that memory you brought up about baseball and the chaw? What are some of your other fond memories of back in the day at Shelby?
Well, let's put it this way, we weren't the best in any one of those sports, but the camaraderie. I was gone for 40 years. I was out of Western Michigan for 40 years. I came back in 2014, and I met some of those guys, and it was like we never missed these. We were always together. I meet them out on the golf course, and they were still the same Rod. They were still the same Tom and Bill. These are all the same guys that I left 40 years ago, because we know who we are together. I don't have to tell them who I am. They don't have to tell me who they are, because we went through things together. We know who we are. We know what our strengths and our weaknesses are, our characteristics are. We've been delved in that from high school. So when I came back home, it was like I never missed a day. That was 40 years away.
That's goosebumps right there, man. I mean, it's just crazy how much sport and that, those kinds of things can reveal your character so that you know exactly who those guys are, even when you come back 40 years from now. I mean, that piece of it is just what every, person in youth right now should be listening to.
Yeah, they look a lot different, but they still act the same different. I'm still, the goofy guy, and the other guys, the number one athlete at that time was Bill Beckman. He's still here and around the area. He was probably the most talented guy in the Western Michigan at the time. I mean, in all sports, not just one. He was a talented football, basketball, baseball player, excellent basketball player, and he's just Bill yet, and we went through college. He was at Bowling Green. I was at Michigan State, and he went through some issues there, and I went through some issues at Michigan State, but we were the same people. And you don't have to, just the nice thing is you don't have to tell people who you are. And
you're not going to fool them either because
No.
they know you. I mean, you grew up with them, and same way, I don't know if that's different in a small town because I grew up in a small town as well. So I wonder, I feel the same way about the friends that when we get back together, we might not see each other for several months, few years or whatever, and it's almost like you haven't skipped a beat.
Yeah, and I try to instill that with my golfers today. I tell them, I said, look at you two guys, Mason Garcia and Carson Clays. I said, you've been playing soccer together for 4 years. You've been playing basketball together for 4 years. Now you're golfing together for their second year. You guys have a relationship whether you like it or not. And you're going to remember, you might go your separate ways for a while, but at some point you're going to meet again, and you're going to have that camaraderie and that relationship and that friendship that you don't have to create. It's there. It's been done. You've created that relationship, and it's there for permanence. So I want them to understand that. Look at each other here. You have friendly competition between number 1 and number 2 seed, but you guys are comrades in arms right now, and you will be forever.
Yeah. So you mentioned Michigan State. Obviously, when you got there, did you intend on going into journalism or broadcasting, or did that kind of change when you got there?
You wanted to know? I was there for a party. Come on. Look, those days, I just kept taking classes to avoid the draft. I mean, I will tell you, I wish I could tell you that my Michigan State years were fantastic. They were a blur. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I didn't know who I was. And that's what I find. I tell these guys now, slow down. Don't be in a hurry to find a career, because the average person changes careers 5 times. 5 times. Mm-hmm. That's the average. That means there's somebody doing it 10 times, another guy doing it once,
right,
to be the average of 5.
Yeah.
And so relax, slow down. You don't have to know what you're going to be when you grow up, because you haven't grown up yet. It took me till I was 30.
Oh, shoot. I still got time then.
Yeah.
I try to tell the kids, too, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. They look at me like,
because I haven't grown
you're
up.
supposed to know everything.
But, I mean, I got to tell you, I mean, I wanted to be an actor. I was thinking of going to New York. I was thinking of going to L.A. and being an on-stage guy. I was a very theater person. I didn't have the guts to do it. I chased a woman down to Florida and realized that Florida is the worst state in the union. And then I eventually got out to California and tried to do stand-up, tried to get into some other kind of performances, and eventually, to make money, I bartended for a long time, ended up buying a little bar, and I started at 30. When I hit 30, the reality hit me. I go, geez, I better do something here, because this bar business sucks. So I ended up selling the place, going back and getting my master's at San Francisco State University, and got into radio and television. And I thought I wanted to do play-by-play like Tater, but wants to, but I found it pretty much redundant, Okay, I mean, it was, you have the thrill of victory and the, agony of defeat and all of that, but basically my job as an announcer was just telling what happened. That wasn't creative to me. And what I found I really wanted to be was a storyteller. And that's when I got into, I created the live broadcasts of football, baseball, and basketball games at San Francisco State. There was none there. When I wanted to do play-by-play, there was nobody I couldn't do it. So I went to audio-visual department, and they agreed to put up televisions, and we did live broadcasts, all student-run broadcasts of San Francisco State University basketball, baseball, and football. Well, in football, we didn't have commercials, so during that football break, we had to fill it with something. So I was doing stories and that packaged stories, and I started realizing that's the most fun, being able to use sight, sound, and motion to create a story within 2.5, 3, 4, whatever time that was both interesting, informative, also artistically interesting, aesthetically pleasing, if you will. And I found that it was part art and part mechanical, but it was what I really found I was the best at, was storytelling. And that's how I ended up, upon graduation, getting into television and not doing so much, the news, which I did. Here's the sport, here's Bob, hey, he's doing sport. That guy, then he'd come on with a bunch of makeup on, you go, yeah, hey, big day today. Oh, geez. Yeah.
You do that well.
Yeah.
Some of their segues on some newscasts just kill me. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Now, well, back in those days, though, back in the late 80s, most guys on air were boring, he hits one to right field. The guy comes in from second to score. It's now 3-1 in the third. I thought this is a toy department of life. Let's have some fun. So I kind of approached it that way. And I got to be known as quirky, but I thought I was just trying to remind people this isn't real, folks. Mm-hmm. We're all going to go home. The millionaires are going to go home. I'm going to go home. Everybody's going home. And so I ended up becoming really more of a storyteller, and I really relished that job as much as anything. I did do a lot of live reporting in the field. In fact, I was the field guy for Super Bowls and World Series and chasing Barry Bonds' home run record. And so I was on the road a lot. It got to be a point I was on the road a lot, but I really was a storyteller.
Yeah, and you just lifted up the Emmy. I mean, you won 2 of those. So if you could lift that up and kind of hold it up so people can see it on the camera, just put it right up by your head.
I'm a little embarrassed by doing this because basically I haven't touched this thing, and can anybody see it?
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, well, yeah, but the next day I had to get up at 6 o'clock and do a damn story too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right.
This thing didn't buy me a thing.
It didn't buy, yeah. No.
So it doesn't. The rewards are.
That's a good reminder for everybody, though.
Yeah,
There's your TikTok right there.
Yeah.
I mean,
seriously, that's a great. I mean,
it didn't do me anything. And like I said, I have another one somewhere. Seriously.
Well, I mean, Cody won a couple state titles.
Yeah, I don't know where the rings are.
So I mean, but to that point, I mean, there's still, you can climb to the top of your profession or wherever you're at in that moment, but
there's the next
still
day.
Tomorrow. There's the next day.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
And it's an ego boost. Come in. I was happy I won it. We had a couple drinks that night. I was celebrating. Then I had a hangover for the 6 o'clock drive. I had to go 90 miles out of town to do a story the next day. But you don't do it for this. I mean, if you're not enjoying the business, if you're not enjoying, if that was that process, that storytelling process, of doing stories about a Jerry Rice or guy. Some of the best stories are about other people. I had a guy who was dying of cancer, but he had one goal, and he wanted to take his Huskies up to do the Iditarod. This was when I was working in Medford, by the way, my first job in the television. And but back in the 80s, we didn't have live remotes and stuff. We would talk on the phone when he would stop at his mark, and I was on the phone and stuff. And so we did a pre-story, and then we followed his log throughout his 19 days out in the snow with his dogs. The thrills and the lost one of his dogs, and just that whole process was just something that it's an everyman story. It's an everyman story. Someone who's taking themselves out of themselves to accomplish something that was beyond what they thought was capable.
Yeah, Sean Hadke comments here. Always take the garbage out and do the dishes after an accomplishment. Stay humble. That's kind of what we're speaking of here. But, I mean, you reached the highest level of your profession and covered the highest levels professional sports. And I've covered not nearly as many professional sports, some, like the Tigers a little bit, covered the World Series a little bit, covered some college stuff. But I still keep, if you ask me 10 out of 10 times, I'll tell you I'd prefer to cover local sports, high school sports, because same reason of what you're saying, storytelling, because this person around here has just as important a story to tell, and sometimes more interesting in some ways than maybe the person that's in the headlines all the time professionally.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But I also find that there's a lot of professional athletes who are dying to tell their story because they didn't just start out as superstars. You look at Jerry Rice. He was in a little tiny town in Mississippi. His dad was a bricklayer, and he was the guy throwing up bricks, and Jerry was catching them with his bare hands, these bricks, and laying brick in 100-degree temperature, and that's manual T labor, my friend.
Yeah.
But he developed these hands from catching those bricks from year after year, that he had these incredible hands. They were tough and they were flexible and they were like Spider-Man hands.
Tate, you shot a lot of bricks in your basketball careers. Were you shooting them? Did you practice shooting them up to your dad? No, I'm just kidding.
Bricks.
Anyways,
Bada boom.
Speaking of cheesy segues, there's one right there. So,
No, but that is crazy. Just the environment too. I bet you he thought to himself, I don't want to lay bricks.
Yeah, and he didn't. Jerry didn't play it. He didn't play football at all until like his senior year in high school. He went to a Division I AA Mississippi Valley State, not Mississippi State, not University of Mississippi, Mississippi Valley State, D1 AA, one of those schools. He set the NCAA record for touchdowns, receiving yards, yada, 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 but people overlooked him because of the level of play he was in.
he ended up being okay, I'd say.
Yeah.
Right?
He ended up,
I think he's still got 30-some NFL records, that guy.
So what was your role with the book again?
Well, I don't think that's really. I don't think I have much role in the book. I'm not even pretending that. I do know that I used to interview him a lot, and I remember one time I interviewed him at his home. This big setup, and while they were setting up, he was complaining to me about how he wasn't getting any, outside work. He wasn't getting endorsements, and I told him point blank. I said, Jerry, you need to go to an English lessons. You need to have an English teacher teach you how to speak English. Now, that threw him back a couple of blocks. I had to go back and go a couple of doors and bring him back. But he realized that's what he had to do. And I says, I can set you up with some people. I know some people. You have to get that, that on-air personality and that articulation. I mean, he had a commercial. I remember he had a commercial with Steve Young one time, and it was embarrassing. It was for some rug company in San Francisco, and it was embarrassing. And he never got anything. Nobody was calling him. And I was the only one, I think, that was honest enough with him to tell him, you need to go get some help. You need professional help. You weren't a football player until you got coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, he's leaving a lot on the table, right?
And by God, he did it. Mm-hmm. And now he's everywhere.
I was going to say, there's a story in there, too.
Yeah.
Just,
yeah. And that's why I tell you what else. Because of that, and a lot of reasons, that's how you develop relationships with guys. I mean, anytime he was on the field, they'd come running off the field after the game, and I'd try to yell at somebody and they wouldn't come. When I yelled, hey, Jerry, he came every time to me because he respected me enough to say, I'm going to help you with your job. Could you help me with mine?
No, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the relationship I'm talking about. Another thing, and I want to bring this up because it's important. golf was my vehicle. Golf was what I used to get close to a lot of these guys that other people weren't able to get to, because almost every Monday there was some charity event, and every Monday they needed somebody to host it, be the barker for the auctions afterwards, yada, yada, yada. My other two guys at my station didn't play golf, so by default, I went to all these. And I was playing golf with these guys. They weren't any better than I was. I mean, they were hitting the ball a lot farther, but our scores ended up being the same. And, there was that thing. We were something else other than that encounter here. Why did you throw that? How come you drop that? Now we're together in a different environment. That is, I don't need anything from them. They don't need anything from me. I'm now not one of them. I would never want to say that, but I'm not one of those. I'm not one of those like, stupid reporter guys. Am I gonna? And it was golf that I made so many. I don't know if we want to call them relationships, but they were bargains, or they were opportunities to show that I wasn't. I had other things than just bad questions, and that I didn't need them for everything. And I can't tell you the amount of people in all the sports that I had that opportunity with that gave me, when you have this giant swarm of reporters with all these microphones, and now with all these social media, they got the little phones as well, and you're way over here, and I'm in front, and I'm talking to those guys, and I get the first question. And that wasn't because I was smarter. It wasn't because I was...
Well, it's relationships. You're treating them like human beings, and that's what I always say. Like, what I did learn by covering professional sports like the Tigers and being in the clubhouse is that's all these guys want at the end of the day. They're just because they have an extraordinary skill in a certain area, that kind of thing doesn't mean, I mean, they're guys, they're people just like us, and they want to be treated as such. So, but back to the endorsement thing. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Air. My wife and I just saw that. About the Air Jordan thing with Nike and everything, and look what that's done. Look how that's revolutionized. Nike, Michael Jordan, just culture, really. Tate, I don't know what you think. Obviously, being a younger guy, and about how different it is now. Maybe that's part of the package. That's part of the thing, and even for high school and college, not so much high school, but college. With NIL and all that stuff, how important is it to, like, you think, market yourself that way? And
now it's almost half the deal, almost half the battle. You see some of these college athletes with the whole NIL thing, where some of these kids my age are millionaires, multi-millionaires, and most of it's for their talent, but it's because of how they marketed themselves. And you just wonder how far, how much, how deep is it going to get? When do we stop?
It gets nasty. It's going to get nasty. It always is. It's business. It's going to get nasty. It's a nasty business. You've got agents who are nasty people. They'll lie. They'll connive. They'll lie to their people that they represent. They'll lie to the people that they are trying to make a connection with. It gets nasty. I've seen it. It's an ugly, ugly business. And that's what it's going to do. Now, what's going to happen is you see, guys are the transfer portal is crazy now. And half of it is because, you didn't have a shirt deal over there?
Yeah.
You'd have a shirt deal over at my school. And there's all of this, just a whole new little bait to bring these guys in. And it's not at all about the game anymore. It is still about the game, don't get me wrong, but there's all of that extra stuff that goes into it. And it's going to be nasty, I think.
Yeah, no, I see it as like you have two citizenships. You have like a lot of like youth and that have their Snapchat and have their TikTok and how they talk to one another on that, and then they have their other citizenship with their physical citizenship where they're like in front of you, and sometimes they get those ones confused and they own up to their their digital citizenship. They act a certain way for so long that they're like, I have to behave like this physically to keep credibility within my peers. Like I see it like through that lens, where that part of it is just it's difficult to watch because you don't have to necessarily live your life that way. Even in 2010, graduating then, we didn't have the apps, we didn't have those kinds of things, and it's 13 years ago, but it was a little bit easier times just because if I said I was going to do something and I'm going to do it, it's not going to be through, I guess, technology that I have to like behave a certain way there and then behave differently some other place and not create all this anxiety of like who I really truly am as a human being. So I just think that piece of it and the marketing piece of it, like we all have to market ourselves now all the time, through social media. And now that I don't have a presence on, social media, that is also saying something about myself. Like, oh, is he hiding something? What's going on? Oh, he must be a jerk.
Yeah, 'cause he's not out there.
Or that it leads to rumors, other people, and you're not able to defend yourself, and it just becomes kind of crazy. I mean, nowadays, athletes and most people have to just realize they're being watched and recorded and sent out some social media some way. I would have never lasted in that kind of condition.
Yeah, didn't the left fielder for the Tigers actually just took like a 2-week break because for social media and anxiety?
Oh, Austin Meadows.
Yeah. So I mean, he just came out there and said that for those things. But I really do think it's all triggered back to you're living all this just crazy life on 2 different platforms and you're having a hard time of like, hey, you talk like that on Snapchat, but then when you see me in person, it's like the same thing. You said all this stuff to me, but then you can't even say hi to me in the hallway.
Yeah, it allows swarming.
Yeah,
it allows you to be really really brave.
Right. Yeah. When you're not right next to each other. Yeah.
You get a lot smarter and smart alecky and swarmy.
Right. A little bit more
no
brave,
accountability. And that was the thing too. See, at my time, I had to go back to the locker room the next day.
Yeah.
If I said something negative, and by the way, my station owned 10% of the Giants, San Francisco Giants. They thought that I wasn't supposed to say anything negative about them. I mean, I was called in before. General manager's talking about, wonders why you said that. And I said, well, here's why. Then I'd go the next day and I'd explain it to him. But I knew that there was pressure to be jingoistic, to be cheerleader, rather than reporter. And I was always happy when the team won. I remember in 2006 when Magglio Ordonez hit that grand slam off the Oakland A's.
Yeah.
I was there. I was upstairs, and the great thing was
I was probably next to you because I was at that game too.
Yeah, well, my brother Mark was with me, and I had to act like that was the greatest thing ever. And I'm going, what the damn Tigers? They couldn't win one game. Boy, those A's, hey, how about 2012 during the Tigers Giants World Series? Oh man, how about them Giants? Oh my God, how they embarrassed themselves with those throws. I mean, but I had to be happy for the home team, so there was some of that going on. But
so was that KTVU too?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's it.
In Oakland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I spent 23 of my 30 years in there.
Now, what other doors did this open? This career and just like you said, you put yourself out there in the way of the golf, and you just put yourself in the position where you can make relationships, form relationships, and then. But what else did that open up for you in terms of what other people did you meet? What other experiences did you have that you still look back on fondly and you're just kind of just can't believe it happened?
That's too big a question.
I know, that's pretty broad.
I mean, look, I've gone to cities I never would have gone to in my life. I've been able to see almost every ballpark, but also to have time enough to look at and visit the cities and get to know. So I got to know the United States. I got to meet all kinds of. I met Pele, excuse me. I had to sit down with him. I had fruit salad with him, which was a crazy story. But
what one's the most rewarding? Like when you look back on your time, like that's the one that keeps on a long drive. That's the one that keeps showing up.
I think it's the series, like the World Series, which is a long, detailed drama that comes out, drips. The Super Bowls are, boom, 3 hours. We're in, we're out. Hey, all the prelude and all the post stuff. But there's your stuff. That's where your story is in those 3 hours. In baseball, like a World Series, 7-game series, 2002 when the Giants played the L.A. Angels. They had the game. They had the. My cameraman and I were taping cables from the dugout into the locker room to do the celebration because they were going to win Game 6. They were leading by something like 4 runs in the 8th inning. Angels came back and then won the next day. But that drama of it's the story, telling the story, letting it come out, and helping narrate it and help put the story in perspective, to get the comments from the players and how you put that together, and well, what does this mean and what does that mean, and how did they feel at that time, and what was that decision. And it's that long process of a World Series, I think, that I would have to say. But boy, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
20, 30 years of,
Right.
And what's funny, something will spark you. I'll watch something, and then out of nowhere, I'll think of how that relates to what was in my life or in my career. A lot of different kind of things will help me remind that, and that's all I got left. I got nothing more. I mean, I'm coaching golf, and I'm trying to spread the gospel of golf, but those were those days, and I kind of put them in a box, and I appreciate having the chance to talk about it much, but around here I don't do that too much because no one gives a crap.
I think it's fascinating, honestly.
Yeah, no, I do too.
I do. I mean, and I'm not on that level, but just even in my experiences, and I don't even take enough time to stop and think about all the things I've seen and done. And again, it's on the local level, high school level primarily, but still, it's still special because of the people you meet. And I think if you treat people right, then, that'll come back to you. And that's not why necessarily you treat people right. You just want to be a good person. But, but those memories, there's a lot of good memories. Some of them that I've forgotten about, and then something will spark and you're like, oh yeah, that was really cool.
I think too, it's like the West Michigan piece too. Like just, there's a lot of people, I don't know the percentage, that probably, don't move. They don't see other things. And there's a stat out there that's like 80% of the people like live 30 miles from their hometown or something like that for the rest of their life. So it's just kind of like that piece of it too, knowing that like you lived a full life and you made a lot of decisions, moving around from place to place, but then you didn't know what you want to do. And then you find what you kind of are interested in. And then that rabbit hole opens up and you're like, oh, I have a whole lifetime of experience through this. And my wife and I, we want to go see all of the ballparks, and here you are sitting right here going, hey, I can tell you what those look like and where to go get something to eat afterwards, So, I mean, like, it's just interesting.
But, also, guys, I was from a small town. I had a chip on my shoulder. I always felt that I was the underdog. I always felt I had to overachieve, and I think that helped me get my job. I outworked most of the people. I mean, most of the people that were doing my job were people who grew up in the Bay Area. They knew all the history of those teams, and without any work, they were just osmosis in them. I had to do the work and do all that history of all of those. I knew more about those teams than they did, and they were living right next door to it because I knew I had to outwork them. And I know that that's one of the things, because I'm from a little school, I felt that I was always the little guy, the underdog, the guy from the other side of the tracks, someone who doesn't deserve to be there. And I made sure that I earned that. And I try and tell these kids that, if you want to stay here, God bless you, do it, stay. But don't be afraid to go out and explore. There was nothing here for me. Nothing but trouble. I had nothing but trouble by staying here. And I knew that. So I had to get away to find myself and find something that made me a good citizen, a worthy citizen, and made living worthwhile. That's what I had to do. And I know there's a lot of people in there right now who look at this area and go, oh, God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Well, I really would, but it's so far out there. Well, it's not that far out there. Just go out there and tell yourself, I belong. And you'll doubt it. You'll doubt it several times, but you'll have to tell yourself, I'm staying here for the long run. The longer I stay, the greater chance I am going to get what I want to do. And that's what I hope that people aren't afraid, and you see it. There's a lot more people now in this generation moving out of town. But all my friends stayed here, and I'm happy for them. They did well. They're all doing well. Don't get me wrong. They're all doing well. They found what they wanted to do. They made it. I had to look a little bit further.
Oh, it can be tough to find that. I mean, obviously, Tate, you're young. You're going through it, or will be going through it. Try to decide what you want to do with your life. You still got time to decide that, but just think about the things he's seen. Don't give up on that broadcasting thing just yet.
No, you're preaching to the choir, because there's always that thought process of, wanting to go for the big job, the dream job, and then you think, am I just arrogant enough to think that I can actually achieve that? Is that even possible? Should I even try and waste my time?
Well, you have to be that arrogant.
I was going to say.
Of course you can.
Let's talk about arrogance, man. Yeah, let's do it.
Number one, of course you can do it. So that's number one. But number two, maybe you're in the place. But you don't really know that until you go out and see other places, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's why I was going to ask you, how long did it take for you to realize, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, or for however long you wanted to do it for? And was there like a specific moment, or how does that work?
I was such a poor example. I mean, I wandered for a while, and like I said, I did stand-up comedy at night.
Right.
Worked in a bar to make my money, saved my money, ended up buying a bar. That was none of that I wanted. But because I knew absolutely nobody out there, that was my one method to me that I could make instant money.
Right.
And that then gave me, money gives you a little more freedom. And then I gave myself freedom to sell that bar, go back to college, and spend all that time going to school, not any time working that much. So I worked it out to be able to afford to chase your dream.
Okay.
But I'm telling you, I was 30 before I had to sit down with myself. And my epiphany, it didn't come one moment. It came in a series of moments. But I knew this. I knew what I liked was sports, and I knew what I could do was talk my ass off. So what do? Let's see, TV sports, So that's how you do it. I think you look at what do I like? What do I have a passion about? Because that job is going to test you every day, huh? I mean, right? You're going to go, what am I doing here? Well, you got to remember why you're doing what you're doing here. And do I have the skills? If I don't have the skills, I better go get them.
Right.
So that's the thing.
So this is neither here nor there, but I had to ask you because I saw you posted it on Twitter the other day. 1987, an estimated 800,000 people on the Golden Gate Bridge for the 50th anniversary. And what was that harrowing experience like for you? Take us through that.
First of all, I'm a claustrophobic, so last thing I needed. And we lived, my future wife and I were living down in Embarcadero. We had a little love nest down there, and it was real close.
Let's go. Let's talk about that.
I got pictures.
I didn't know what I was getting myself into here, but I kind of like it.
So she had some family from Minnesota here, and we walked from our place to there, which was quarter of a mile. And we thought, this is going to be easy. Heck, we can do it. Come on, let's go do this bridge, man. And we got there pretty early, so we were one of the first ones. So we got right to the middle because they were coming from both sides, from Sausalito and from San Francisco. And we got to halfway, and we go, hey, this is kind of cool. This is kind of cool. And then we got pushed in tighter and sardined a little bit more. And then we realized they were just letting people on, and there was no grand plan of enter and exit. There was no in and out, and everybody was just getting tighter and tighter, and that bridge started shaking.
No.
And I two things I hate: height and too many people. And I'm right there.
Man.
You were testing it.
I was testing it. We lost her cousins.
Brent, can I say, Brent, can we, do we get the therapist on call now?
Yeah,
okay.
The bar's open next door. But no, it was, my life flashed before my eyes. I mean, there was no way out. No, I'm not going to jump. But that thing started shaking and swaying. And we thought, oh, what a way to celebrate the 50th anniversary.
Is it true that it didn't? It wasn't as arching. It's not as arching as it was at one time. Just boom.
Oh, I don't know about that. But there was an hour of panic, and then all of a sudden we weren't just the only ones. It got further out. You know, the people that were only quarter of the way onto the bridge started realizing the same thing we did when we were in the middle of it.
How long is that bridge again?
I don't know, mile and a quarter, I think.
Long enough.
Long enough that you can die there. Yeah. And we lost, like I said, we lost her cousins who didn't know the area at all. So I get back.
Lost.
We got separated.
I didn't know we were going into tragedy here.
We didn't know where they went.
Yeah, okay.
Her cousin was pretty, I'll take the reins kind of person, and we didn't see him till later that night. They didn't know him. We didn't know if they got off. We assumed they did, hoped we did, but they didn't know how to get back to our place. So we spent most of that night wondering where. Oh my God, we're going to go to this now. You know, I hope we're not going to see people under blankets. We had all the worst case scenario there. And it was just, we're supposed to be celebrating this, and we're thinking we're going to have to make some calls back home. It was scary.
Leave it to me to take it to the traumatic place.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I'm just hitting all the right notes today.
Yeah.
Right. And Tate's trying to figure out too. He's like, why didn't you just pin your location? Like, you could have found him real quick.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, you know that's the deal. That was
87, I think.
87. Yeah. Right.
So, what ultimately brought you back here then?
Well, we had enough of San Francisco Bay Area. We had enough of the Bay Area. We had enough of California. You know, you get older, your needs are changing. We looked at Arizona. We looked at Oregon. We looked at a lot of places. My wife's from Duluth, so she knows cold. We were both hesitant to come home because of the weather. Let's face it, that's one of the biggest reasons I left. Come on. But we came home one Easter, and we found this house that we bought, and we thought, well, we can't afford that. And we found out we could not only afford it, but it was cheaper than we could have ever imagined. I mean, you sell a piece of dump condo in California, you can buy a lot
for sure.
Here, you know. So, and that's why all my friends said, "Well, you'll be back." And I go, "You don't understand. It economically does not work that way. You can't sell your home in Michigan and buy out there. You can sell there and buy here." And
probably had to get rid of some money too.
Well, we didn't have to get rid of it. Put it in. Well, we are. I'm investing in it, and I'm getting rid of it little bit by little bit. No, and this is where family is. Oh, my brother, you know, is one of my youngest brother is the golf pro and the general manager of Oceana Golf Club, and been there since '92. My older brother, Paul, was the county administrator, the mayor, president, or whatever else, Shelby, and my sisters are all having their families here. So somebody's got to bury me, and I figured it might as well be family, you know. But seriously, I've always loved this area. This is home. The big deal is I didn't have anything to do here. Now I'm here because I don't have to do anything. But no, this is home, and I never, ever forgot what I got out of this town, what this town gave me, what my family gave me. And so you go back to those who treated you right. But I have no complaints, dude. I have no complaints in my life. I was never the biggest guy out there, you know, but I made my life, and I'm a happy dude. I'm healthy. I'm preaching the gospel of golf, and playing poor guitar and playing with my dog. You know, life is good, man. Yeah. Life is good.
How much has Oceana Golf grown since the time, you know, maybe when you left, and then you're back now, and where it's at now?
I don't have to tell you that a couple, 3-4 years ago, it was almost going belly up. It was a membership owned, and one of the greatest guys I've known since I've been back bought it. Jason Wink, friend of the Raths family, born and raised here, making gazillion dollars in L.A., investing, and in the money securities business and all of that, and he's come back and bought Bonona golf course, put a quarter of $1,000,000 in a couple of years in a row, remodeled it, put some new holes in it. They're building 2 more holes now, 2 different holes, changing it around, getting enough equipment to maintain it. It's revolutionized it and saved it, and it's a great story about a young man who is giving back. He can afford to, but he did it. He's giving back to his community. He still lives out there. He bought a house on Lake Michigan now, but he intends to come back back and forth. But Jason Wink is his name, and he saved Oceana Golf Club, and it's never been better. And my brother, who's been there since '92, has gone through all those changes. And there's literally, the banks were done talking to us, to the course. They were done. So it could have been cherry orchard by now if it wasn't for Jason Wink. And then he did that with Bonona. And now he bought a gas station at Silver Lake. He's putting his fingers in everything now. He's got that little restaurant out near Bonona now, and he's going to renovate that, and it should be open shortly. But the golf has changed. If there was anything that made it positive in COVID, it was that golf became very popular. I'm seeing people I never thought I'd see on a golf course. Well, there was a generation we lost. We lost a generation of golfers. Now the 25 and 30-year-olds have just rediscovered it, and there's a lot of new golfers in there that are, 25, 30. The problem is we don't have anybody now. There's no feeder program. There's junior football programs, there's basketball programs from that. There's nothing coming for developing golfers. And it's the same stereotype I had. Oh, it's too expensive. It's too costly. Well, no, it isn't, actually. My brother lets my high school kids play all summer long free. I've given 3 of my 6 guys clubs. If you want to play, well, there's a way to play. First tee.
Oh, yeah.
First tee may be the solution. It's just coming into Oceana County. It's in Muskegon County. I saw it out in San Francisco. I saw the positive results of that. I know First Tee works. I know it. But it's so much of it at its embryo stage here that I don't know if I'll see it, the results of it, for years. But it has to be started, and it has to have, we need someone exposing it to them. And First Tee is our best chance.
Are you guys golfers?
Yeah. I started golfing. He's shaking his head over there.
No, man, I was about to ask a question about who's the best coach that you golfed with, because I'm like, if a coach golfs well, you know that they're not a great coach. That was always the saying. We just have 2.
Or they're a kicker.
Yeah, or we have a lot going on, man. I go to the 2 golf outings I think a year, and
I don't know. Quarterbacks are usually good golfers, though.
I know. Players wise, I think they have enough time, because Coop is awesome. The backup for the Cowboys, he is we golfed in college all the time, and it's just he just keeps getting better, and I'm not improving. You're you got to go out more than once a summer. I'm that makes sense. But yeah, that's always a saying. The coaching realm wise, it's hard to get out there and really get after it.
I think the best golfers are hockey players.
Yeah, that's true.
They've got that same swing where they're hitting the puck. It's that same inside.
And they knock the crap out of the ball.
Yeah, but it's still a lot of the same swing. It's not baseball. Baseball is a different swing, and you have a different waist, and you have to. And that's the thing with these young golfers. They don't understand that it's different parts of their body, and they're not necessarily connected to them yet. But I've had some great golfers. Not too many coaches, actually. A lot of players. John McVay, who was the general manager of the 49ers, who was the grandfather of Sean McVay, who was the father of the guy who was my general manager at KTVU Channel 2, John McVay, who helped really put those Super Bowl championship teams together with Bill Walsh. He was an excellent golfer. He was older. He was in his 60s, and that man, he was shooting 3-4 under par, at his age. So.
But trying to hit it, man.
Yeah.
I swear to you, it's not moving either. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, it's a game you'll never, ever solve.
Would you say it's the hardest sport probably in the world? It's probably, I mean, it's up there.
Oh, I don't know. Sumo wrestling seems pretty good. I don't know. I know this. It gives me the kind of competitive. I couldn't play basketball at my age. I'm 73. I'm not going to play basketball, football. I'm not going to, do all those sports. But I can go out there and play 4 times a week. All my parts come back home with me, and celebrate the journey. Because it's not you ain't gonna get to that end. I'm never gonna get better, but that journey, that chase, and the feeling of it's like when you throw a football, you're able to take yourself beyond yourself to that guy that's receiving that ball, to be able to extend yourself through a ball to someone and you hit that guy right in stride. When you hit that driver and you carve it around, or you hit a 9-iron, you bring it up and it falls right next to you've extended yourself beyond yourself. Just like in football, just like in baseball, when you make that diving catch where you've just timed it perfectly, or you hit the perfect strike, or you threw the perfect ball in the perfect strike zone. It's extending yourself beyond yourself. That is something that we all try to do in some form. Darts, I mean, come on. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing. It's taking yourself beyond yourself through an inanimate object that you controlled, that you started.
Right, you're responsible for that.
You're responsible for it.
In the rare occasion where I do hit a great golf shot, I find myself asking, wait a minute, how did I do that again? Because you want to replicate it, but...
I don't know. I'm sold on this, though. I'm sorry. Sorry, wife. I'm going to go get to the golf course.
Yeah.
It's an addictive feeling. And I try to tell my kids this. When they make a good shot, I'm telling them, huh? Come on now. Come on now.
Yeah.
That felt pretty good. Yeah, you can enjoy it.
Yeah.
You can enjoy it.
Yeah.
Enjoy that feeling. That's the one you're coming after. That's the thing.
Yep.
That's the addiction right there.
That one shot
Keeps you
that
coming
brings
back.
it back. Yeah, yep.
All right, well, thanks, guys. That'll wrap up our episode here. Before we sign off, let's thank our sponsors one more time. That's Grieve Law, Big Stone Therapies, Green Ridge Realty with Chris Dykman, Sarah Reel, North Grove Brewers, Foundation Systems of Michigan with John Botten, Coldwell Banker with Dave Dusenberry, Scheid Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, and then our title sponsors, Van Dyke Mortgage Lakeshore and Dirk Insurance Group. Again, that'll do it for Season 4, Episode 5 of the CatchMark Sports Podcast. Thanks again for joining us, Fred. It was phenomenal. It's stealing a word from Jim Rome. Phenomenal.
Well, hey, this was fun. We were just a bunch of guys sitting around talking, right?
Yeah, we should do this more often.
Yeah.
That was a good time. But have a great week, everyone. We'll see you next week on the CatchMark Sports Podcast.